in southeast London, and joining me as usual is Gregory. Gregory, how are you and how's the weather where you are?
Very sunny and all is fine.
Good. And here in London, it's also very sunny and very warm as well. According to my computer, it's 24 degrees. So, yes, very good. Welcome, listeners. As I said, this is the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprushing. And we have a new topic for discussion every week. The topic tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. The immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Uprushing is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Uprushing. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will you be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, I just want to remind you again, the topic we're discussing tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. The immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as usual, I like to look in the dictionary for the meaning of the key words in the title of the topic. So, as you know, the topic tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happening. So the first keyword actually I looked up was the word cause. And there it says, in the dictionary, there are 2 meanings given there. So the first one, it says, a person or thing that gives rise to an action, phenomenon, or condition. And they give an example. The cause of the accident is not clear. So, Gregory, just with that particular meaning there, is that good definition there of the meaning of cause? I think you're on mute, Gregory.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Well, it's a fair definition. However, what one should be looking or searching for in discussions like this will be intuitive definition, which carries much more meaning into it.
Okay, so before you say anything more, I would like to read the second meaning they give. And it says here, in the dictionary that is, the meaning of cause, a principle, aim of movement to which one is committed and which one is prepared to defend or advocate. I guess, in the example they've given there, she devoted her whole adult life to the cause of deaf people. So I would say that meaning isn't the one we are referring to tonight. Although in the story that might be relevant, but that's not the cause that we mean. Would you like to say anything on that, Gregory?
Yeah, correct. Because when I saw that and listened to it, I just said, well, there are times you use figures of speech to represent something. And this one is one of those cases, but it's not the cause that we're referring to within the framework of creation or framework of nature.
Right. So now, you said we should be looking at the intuitive meaning of these words. So, so with regard to the word cause, is there anything you can add there for us to look at?
Briefly, one just thought a cause is more of an initiated activity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Initiate.
When you initiate an activity, or you start an activity, or you change an activity, that becomes a cause.
Okay. Now, actually, automatically, from when you say that, you say you initiate. So, let's when anything happens to us, let's talk at one person rather than when I use the word us, I say, let's say to me. Am I the cause of what happens to me?
You said when something happens to you,
Yes.
are you the cause?
Yes.
No, you may not be the cause as such. However, the possibility is there that within the scheme of things, when this cause is running its trajectory, you make a decision to intersect that trajectory, and therefore something happens to you. But that doesn't mean you initiated the cause. You initiated the activity. What you initiated is your path that has crossed this particular activity.
Okay. So yes. So not everything that happens to me is due to my doings, if I can say, or my initiation. But it, yes. Sorry, can I just confirm that, Gregory? Anything that happens to me, could I be the initiator of that? In every case. Not in every case.
Right. But, however, you could be attracted to the path of this as this courses or this activity unfolds. You could be attracted to it, and therefore the question which every person must be asking themselves: how come they are attracted to it?
Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's explore that a bit later, and because I want to continue with the other words in the topic tonight, which is so. Just to repeat again, the topic tonight we're discussing is the immediate and remote cause of life's happenings. So, Gregory, the next word I've looked up there is immediate. And there it says in dictionary, I think there are two meanings, but I know one is the more appropriate one, so I'm going to use that one, which is occurring or done at once, instant. And the example they give, the authorities took no immediate action. So maybe that's not the perfect for what our topic is. But so anyway, Greg, I'll repeat that. The meaning of the word immediate in the dictionary is saying occurring or done at once, instant. So how relevant is that to our discussion when we use it in our topic, immediate?
Well, you said at once. So it's quite relevant. So one can see something happening and there is a simultaneous response. So you say that one is immediate.
Yes. Okay. And then the second word, or third word in our discussion, keyword, let's call it, is remote. And I looked at also in the dictionary, and here it says, in brackets, it says, of a place situated far from the main centers of population or distant. Actually, Gregory, again, there are two meanings given. I'm going to go for the more appropriate one, which actually is having very little connection or with or relationship to. So this is the meaning of remote. Having very little connection with or relationship to. And the give example they give is the theory seems rather intellectual and remote from everyday experience. So, how good is that definition of the meaning of?
Well, that definition will be right when considering spatial occurrences. We are considering spatial occurrences, so you can talk of remote. But when one is talking about time, which is different from space, you can't use that.
Yes. Yes, I saw that immediately as I was reading it out. But what about this having very little connection with or relationship with? So something that is remote, not connected with, or little connection, very little connection.
Well, again, this is where it becomes very tricky, because when remote is used, before one goes supplies a fairly intuitive picture, when the word immediate is used, we have that the response is not delayed. Whereas when the word remote is used, we have that the response is delayed.
Okay.
So with the picture of delay, so when one is referring to as remote causes, something happened in the past and the response was not immediate. It's as if the response has been delayed, which response we refer to as the returns.
Right. Now this is, let's say, very interesting. So there's an immediate response, and there's also a distant, or let's not use the word distance, a response from a delayed response.
Yes.
So that is makes it very, how can I say? I use the word interesting, meaning that it's really, you can reflect on that. So thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Now. There's so many actually stories, Gregory, in my research I was finding on this, looking at this immediate and remote causes of life's happenings, and maybe I think I will go and look for some examples. So let me give you one. Okay, Gregory, yeah, let's do this one. It's very much in the news right now. So today is the 5-year anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire, which happened in London, where 72 people died in the tower. And now although the investigation is still happening, or let's say the inquiry is still happening, and the consequences of let's say potential prosecutions and all that still not happened because they're still doing investigations. So in any case, it is understood, or let's say widely accepted, that the immediate cause of such a sudden fire, just in case people don't know what happened in this fire, yes, 72 people died, but really what the big thing about it was there was the fire spread very rapidly, and the main reason for that is the cladding on the building was not very good in retarding the fire. In fact, it was accelerating the fire, spreading it very fast, and obviously it meant that people couldn't escape so easily. Apart from many other points where people were advised to stay inside their flats rather than run out, go to from whichever level they were to come downstairs to escape, they were told to stay in, because that's the regular normal advice when a fire occurs in such a building. But unfortunately, it worked because of the type of cladding was used here. It was actually accelerating the fire and it had actually the opposite effect. Rather than protecting the residents, it actually made things worse. So, Gregory, the point I'm saying is that is the immediate cause of or the consequence of this fire. What we are aware of. But then there's another question, Gregory. It is, let's say, you could call it speculation, but people thought, wait a minute, the area where this building is and the residents who live in it is a little, let's say, when I use the word deprived, I have to put that in quotes because everything is relative. So let me just say that way. And so the building was, well, let's put it this way, they were not private tenants, they were mostly either in housing association or council tenants. And so maybe it is thought that maybe when they were looking at the design of the cladding to put there, maybe economics was a big factor and they were trying to save money rather than use something, let's say, more expensive, let's just put it that way. So, and one of the reasons is, the people were not treated properly. So, of course, that is, as I said, Gregory, speculation, and we cannot, let's say, we can just only think about that. Now, the other point is, Gregory, the people say, these 72 victims in the fire were innocent. And, and as usual, Gregory, always some people survive, either they escape or they weren't even there when this happened, this fire happened. So people will be wondering why it happened to some people this way, that they died, and others survived or escaped, were not even there. So, Gregory, so the question I'm asking, let's say that is a remote cause of the fire or the consequence of the fire, and what could one say about this? The 72 people, were they connected somehow? That they had to sort of die in this fire, tragically, and others escaped.
Well, thanks for this particular question. From the fire that consumed the building and many had to perish, something stands out: negligence. For if you had the stakeholders, by stakeholders, you mean one is referring to those who are responsible for the maintenance of such properties, and also those who live within such properties. A thing like we mentioned, one for all and all for one. What you have found in various degrees is that of negligence. Negligence, lack of vigilance, and lack of alertness. So one should be asking oneself, how did we as contribute to this scenario of negligence? Of course, there are many who had in the past, long time ago, have sown threads, which threads will have returns. And when we say threads have been sown, in remote times, that's a long time ago, and we now have the delayed responses. What is expected according to the laws of nature and laws of creation is that the individuals have the duty to improve of themselves in the form of vigilance, not only intellectual vigilance, but also intuitive vigilance and alertness, and also the notion of negligence, always paying attention to one's neighborhood, knowing fully well the scenario in which they are in. Sometimes these things are not really taken seriously until a catastrophe brings it to the focus of many. Then, all of a sudden, people start responding to it. But very sadly, some have been caught within the cogwheels. Some may say they are innocent, some may say they are not innocent. The general lesson which is picked up from here is vigilance, alertness, and also to ensure that in all our activities, one should try to avoid this negligence. It doesn't concern me. I can just live the way I wish to live. It's like you go around and you find people throwing dirt in the gutters, spitting here, doing all sort of things, sneezing without, covering their nose to make sure whatever bacteria they have is contained. And I thought the COVID brought this home very, very seriously, and that of negligence. So those who have had to perish in the COVID, when initially they didn't have the COVID, how would you explain such a habit? Each personality has the duty, the task, to be vigilant, to always strive to know more than that which lies in its immediate vicinity. By so doing, you first protect yourself through the knowledge, and also, to a large extent, to protect your neighbor. So these are just general lessons which should be learned from all these catastrophes that one has mentioned.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Just to understand or clarify further, you said vigilance and negligence there. Were you referring to the actual residents of the tower or others as well?
I use the word stakeholders. The stakeholders are the authorities and also the inhabitants of the building.
Right. Yes. So yes, thank you for that. I didn't hear that actually. So thank you for saying that. And okay. Now, yeah. Just to continue a little bit further on this. I mean, there's so many things said about this story because when the fire was happening, people were watching from outside, and those who were inside were calling the fire brigade, obviously, saying, there's a fire here, and then they were given advice, stay indoors, but others were saying, no, get out. So obviously, you get these conflicting things being said, Gregory. This is in the moment now, obviously, because we know with the cladding that was a decision made long back. Of course, if they had made a better decision, the fire would have been very limited. But you have to deal with the reality as it is, not once it's too late, you can say, or once decision's been made. So my question on that, Gregory, is when you have conflicting information, in that moment, to escape or to stay at home, stay inside, and how can one sort of deal with that?
Each personality is endowed, even at such dire moments, is endowed with deep intuition to make fast and quick decisions. That is part of vigilance. That is part of an alertness. So it depends on the personality. One cannot use one brush to sweep everything. Each person is different. There are some who reside in that building who were not there for one reason or the other. They had some inner sensing and they just moved somewhere. Only when they tried to come back, they find it was on fire. That's one. How could one explain it? There are some who were comfortable and felt nothing would happen. And yet, when the fire came, though they were in precarious areas, neighborhoods, nothing happened to them. There are others who perished within this configuration. So each personality who is the observer or have had to pass on in these catastrophes has the duty to ask themselves deep within them intuitively, what could I have done differently? Like has been stressed, as with everything in life, in living, vigilance is the key. Vigilance and alertness. By vigilance, not only the intellectual vigilance, but also the spiritual vigilance. There are some people who are so friendly with animals and they keep animals as friends. What then happens? The animals are more sensitive to some of these things. And who knows? There are cases where in their sensing, drag, for one reason or the other, their owners out of harm's way. That is vigilance. And for such a personality who has taken to liking and loving animals and exercising them, but these are possibilities which the human personality must consider.
Thank you. Thanks for that answer, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to Bless Radio. We are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. And you can listen to our previous shows as well on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO .fm / Bless Radio 1. Again, the number 1. And the topic we're discussing tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. The immediate and remote causes of life's happening. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, there's so many stories in the news which I thought were very suitable for our discussion tonight. So another one I found is, again, this happened 5 years ago. There was a bombing at Manchester Arena where mostly young children were attending a concert. And I think 22 people died, and obviously some also survived. And this particular man, his name is Martin Hibbert, he survived. Became paralyzed from the waist down. Any case, he said he would raise funds for a charity for disabled people by climbing Africa's highest mountain, Kilimanjaro, on his wheelchair. Of course, he could not do this by himself together, and he actually completed that. I think it's a 5-day journey. In his case, this is from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. It took, I think it's 5 days. That's what they said. The plan was to get there in 5 days. And the temperature difference is quite a lot. Mountain, it escapes me exactly what it is now. And of course, he has to encounter quite a few obstacles on his way there. In fact, when you reach the top, or before you even reach the top, people have breathing problems, other problems, to get there. But he achieved it with his team of people. So my question there, Gregory, and actually there was an article about this, but I will just say one quote. There's so many things in this story, but so he wanted, his aim was to embrace the disability. He wants people to embrace his disability, like he's embraced it, and change this perception of what disability. People think, oh, I'm disabled. It's like I can't do things, but he wanted to say, what he said was, we literally can climb mountains. So this is what he achieved, and he made a purpose from his survival. Now, Gregory, again, as you know, the immediate cause of what happened in this Manchester Arena is, the bomb, that killed 22 people, and then others who survived. And then, as I said, some of those who survived, in this case, this particular one person felt he has to do something because let's say he's been blessed to live. So this is a little bit different, Gregory. It's not even about a cause in this. Well, in a way, he wants to know why he survived. Why did he survive? And then he used that, you could say, question to drive him to, do something good. So, Gregory, can we try to look at that and see, how people's life can change, through such, you could say, terrible disaster, Yes, some people died and some people lived. And then, in this case, somebody turned it to let's say, embraced what happened to them and said, no, I don't want to be restricted because of what happened to me. So can we try to understand, how these things happen, how people can, let's say, uh, make decisions in their life? I don't quite know what question to ask, actually, if I'm honest, because it's just such an inspiring story, and you're thinking, okay, some people can go sad and depressed maybe, and others say, no, I want to do something. So, Gregory, yeah, let's look at first question, really. First question, why I lived. Maybe we can look at that. What could be the cause of that? You could say that, yeah.
We, at the initiation or at the initial discussion, one had discussed immediate responses to an activity, which is a cause. And there is also the remote or the delayed response. This delayed response is what one referred to as returns. Sometimes these returns, when it's unfavorable, are classified by many as a karma. Whatever it is, whatever challenge that has touched the human or that has impacted on the human personality, the need is there to first absorb deep within what this challenge is, which challenge may trigger the human personality to respond intuitively, depending on the final outcomes. That one has lost the physical body does not mean that person is not alive. It only means that the physical body has ceased to function the way it has been functioning. There are some who are injured to some extent. It means, of course, the physical body is still active, but not as active as it was initially. There are some that it didn't touch at all. Each personality must examine how they responded to this particular challenge, and in that personal examination should consider very carefully here or previously how the returns would have brought such a challenge to them. Because these challenges, like the case of the bomb you mentioned, must have had some resonance with some activity in the past for them to have been so involved. But these are questions that each personality must ask themselves. There are some who respond in a straightforward way, like this man has done, and he wants to do something. Whatever it is, if an activity does not sink into the human personality, then the human personality, which is of spirit, does not benefit from it at all. And it is what benefits the spirit that counts, that it can learn from here or hereafter. As to why that had to approach him and it had to impact him to that extent depends basically on the returns of what the individual might have sown in the past. Or one could also say one of the reasons could be that of vigilance or of alertness. Some may even classify it as negligence. For like one had just mentioned, there are the scenarios where you find that someone who was supposed to have gone to that particular gig or stadium, whatever one gets, such a gathering, has an animal who was able to sense something which the human personality is unable to sense, and drags him or her away, or even does something that will ensure that the path that that personality would have taken is cancelled. So that which would have caused him so much havoc does not occur. So these are the questions which each person must ask themselves. And these events are to help to awaken the personality. But many only consider that which is of physical importance, bread and butter. They themselves do not even consider that deep within them, that which activates the physical body is of spirit, because they lack this knowledge or they lack this conviction. One, therefore, cannot talk of spiritual alertness or spiritual vigilance. And therefore, you now have events happening which stun them to their core, and they don't know how to respond to it. For many, they become depressed because deep within them, there is that fear. It could happen to me again. Whereas all they needed to do is to be a bit more open, to acknowledge that there is more that meets the physical eye, that which activates the physical body is not of matter, whereas matter is only used as a covering. But as usual, many do not wish to consider this, and that is their undoing.
Thank you for this answer and picture, Gregory, because yes, I would say majority of us look at the physical experiences and what we can see, and you could say just simply what is happening in front of our eyes, and say, oh, that's the cause. Maybe there's another cause, but it's limiting to only that. This, you could say, even this one earth life, and they'd have no conception, oh, actually there could be something happening from my previous life. And also who we actually are. As you pointed out, we are a spirit, and so the physical, which is not a physical being, it just resides in the body, and so we relate our experiences to only in a physical way rather than the spiritual, basically spiritually. So this is, and maybe these are the moments you can say, or not only these moments, but in these particular moments of there's a tragedy, people start wondering, oh, why it's happening to me, and how it could happen. But then again, they're only looking at we can say the immediate causes and not the remote. So thank you for that. Now, I'm going to talk about another thing, Greg, a little bit different this time. And I know we've mentioned it in past a little bit, but again, I saw that today in the news, Gregory, was just particular one item, which says basically that in the schools, the children were, let's say, in quotes, misbehaving and being bullied by, and then they're bullied by their fellow pupils, or even, and then let's say, and misunderstood by their teachers. And what it is, after some years, it is diagnosed that they're actually autistic, these children. And then suddenly, when that has been diagnosed, then people start to understand, the teachers, the parents, even the pupils, that actually the person is not misbehaving. It's just that's how they act. And for example, let's say in the school lesson, this autistic child at that moment is undiagnosed and is looking at the let's say blackboard, and not looking at the teacher, and the teacher's sort of shouting, or not maybe shouting, but whatever way, one, let's say, mistreating, whatever the word I cannot quite describe correctly, not dealing with it properly, and then the child who's autistic feels he's being abused in some way, and then mistreated, you could say, and all because actually what's happening is because they're autistic, it takes time for them to process what's actually happening, and they're trying to learn, but they can't absorb it as quickly as the other children, what is being said. And when they are looking at the board, it's only because that's the way they happen to do it. So it's not anything bad behavior, as some may think. So I know this question may not look like, oh, what is here about remote and immediate causes, but that's happening. But in a sense here, Gregory, it's just how people respond in these situations. Here, Gregory, they don't even know the immediate cause, although they may, why is this child acting this way? And of course the child, why are they autistic? That's somebody may wonder that as well. So what I would like to ask about that, Gregory, that when the situation is that child is behaving in school, which is the person is undiagnosed, they're behaving, let's say misbehaving, like I said, or at least in quotes, they're misbehaving. How can we, when you don't know what is the issue, how can one respond in the right way, so that the person who's affected, the child who's that way, is affected and helped, and the others around him can, respond appropriately?
First, it is assumed that people, or even children, learn at the same rate. That is the first wrong assumption, because you now have a curriculum which is designed assuming, with the assumption that the floor is level. The floor is not level. The earth is not flat. There are hills, there are valleys. So, what has been put in place, in which the human personality is thrust in, that particular scenario is faulty. For it is expected that one must be able to grasp the intellectualities which have been put out for the children. Many of those who are considered autistic, when examined closely, are found to be highly intelligent. However, they are slow to respond to the pattern or they are slow to respond to the neighborhood or the expectations of the neighborhood. And therefore, they have been classified to be autistic. What has not been tried is basically that particular child be thrust into the world of music, which world of music is very different to the intellectualities you have in schools. Different people are able to absorb these challenges of the language differently. There are some who are able to handle the challenges of the curriculum quite easily. There are some not as easy as others. Therefore, for any curriculum to be successful, those who are supposed to follow that curriculum are supposed to have been checked very carefully to find out what their innate skills are, rather than just putting every person in one boat. And that has been the challenge of the so-called education. The education which is mentioned basically is more about mundane things, not things that go straight to the spirit and has an impact to the spirit. Many of those who are classified as autistics, when they listen to music, they behave differently. Why? Whereas some of us who are not classified as autistic cannot even respond as brilliantly as those who are classified as autistic. As with everything, unless you have the scenario where these things have been examined intuitively and we have a solution prepared to handle those who can learn intellectual things very quickly, and also those who cannot learn intellectual things very quickly. For only on such a basis can you have a fair assessment and therefore making provisions for all. Because without that being in place, one will always judge only in one way. There are some, again, who are autistics in the arts who are good dancers. Or do we throw away dance and say it's unimportant and that only sciences are important? There are some who, in quotes, are classified as autistic who are even more sensitive to the vibrations around them and can explain things not in the way we expect these things. So the error is the educational system which has been put in place, which educational system lack deep intuitiveness. That is the error.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. When I was watching that news item, well, let's say special item, they had in fact, this autistic child is actually a daughter of a journalist who's on that TV station. And so basically, she was, let's say, she's 16 now, I believe, and 2 years ago, she was diagnosed. They discovered the diagnosis 2 years ago that she was autistic. And so what happened now, she made a video for schools, and especially teachers, to give for them to know the signs of how an autistic, or she specifically, but she gave the signs how autistic children behave when, and so that the teachers can pick it up, because obviously, like most people like to fit in with their community, and when the autistic child, who doesn't know they're autistic, but they are finding that they're not fitting in, they start to copy certain behaviors of the fellow pupils. But of course, the way they do it, because they're acting, it doesn't really work out like the other children. So there are a few signs, and they use this word term masking, where they're basically trying to copy fellow children. The autistic child is trying to copy his fellow pupils, and if you can spot that, then you will say, oh yes, this is not how the other children actually are. And so that's why it's it's, again, everything, Gregory, is about awareness. When you are not aware, how will you act correctly? But if you are, I would say, Gregory, sometimes you can, like we say already, about being vigilant. If something isn't right, or how you normally expect, but somebody is behaving the way they're behaving, then you can always think, oh, what's happening here? Are they actually misbehaving, or actually they're behaving this because of another reason? So somehow it shows, how deeply we have to examine to really understand the situation. Now, dear listeners, I just want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushi. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message, or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. The immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. And you can listen to us also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space live stream. And you can listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. And of course, you can also listen to the recordings of our previous shows on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. And Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1. Again, the number 1. Now, Gregory, I want to take you across the Atlantic and go to the USA. Again, in the news, Gregory, we keep hearing about gun violence. It happens very continuously and in very sort of big scale, multiple murders, and people wring their hands and say, "Oh, we need to control the guns," and so on. Now, so again, Gregory, when that happens and it's in the news, these mass shootings, and in many cases, the immediate causes are quite clearly seen. Mostly it's a younger person picking up the gun, and they seem to have mental illness for whatever reason. They've got involved in something, and then somehow, they want to take it out on even people, Gregory, who are nothing to connected with them. Maybe they start with one person close to them in the family, but mostly it's the attack, like I say, we've seen in schools, even shops and other places, in public, you can say. So the immediate cause, Gregory, you could see, okay, there's a freedom to buy a gun easily, and also the other one, in many cases, they're mentally ill. But then one wonders, because it keeps happening constantly, all over, you wonder if there's a deeper cause, as we say here, Gregory, remote cause. And so, Gregory, could that be something in their culture, and some history, in their history, how they treated people, and because we don't see that in other countries, and maybe they don't have so many guns in their other countries, but this behavior doesn't seem to happen in other countries. So could there be, like I say, what would be the remote cause for this type of terrible acts?
Very simply, one would not even consider a remote cause, but the laziness or the innate fear many have, that were they to speak out against such gun violence, they will lose face. So it does not mean at all that there was some remote cause. Again, this is what one may classify or categorize as negligence. As with everything, all has to be weighed very carefully. But many, in quotes, have chosen to live as they like, whether what they like damages the other is immaterial to them, similar to so-called climate change. People want to just live their lives as they wish it, There are some who, in the neighborhood, wish to smoke, even when smoking had been designated as one of the real causes of cancer. But people wish to smoke. They have their wishes. The question is, those wishes of the individuals, do they accord with one for all and all for one? Never. And that is the cause of all this mass shooting. You rightly pointed out, it's a rarity in other countries. But in this particular enclave, they love their guns. They love to be able to take out their guns and shoot any person. So, it's a challenge for them all to look into. There's nothing one can do about it because they wish it so. If they don't like it, they know what they should do. That they are afraid to take the necessary action is their own undoing. So one cannot now say, oh, maybe people who have been shot, have in their past earth life, they were shooting people. Of course, that is a possibility. What about those in other countries who do not allow guns to be displayed and, people can easily buy guns and shoot people? Did they not shoot people in other earth lives? And yet, in this earth life, they don't have the access? Or even if they have the access, are they still not controlled? So these matters must be viewed within the context of the freedoms, of the intellectual freedoms, which the society that is involved in this mass shooting, the context that they have evolved into, and the context in which they feel comfortable, even to the detriment of others.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I was trying to think of another possibility. We've talked many times in the past, maturity of the people, let's say in this case. And so that's why I was wondering what other factor it can be. I mean, we know that the Americans, let's say they're about, around 200, this current, the USA we are talking about, it is, the people there are like around 200 years ago they came, and sort of a new civilization there, although the people did come from Europe mostly, which has been established for a long time. But somehow they began new life there, and and they had the cowboy culture, if I can say. Although I don't think, yes,
that doesn't hold.
Right.
For a very simple reason, just above them is Canada. Why don't we have such behaviors there? After all, it's about the same time. So it's just that you have a cabal, a group of people, always considering their own selfish interests to the detriment of others. There's no other explanation. Because if one considers that, it's only 200 years, so is Canada. They are also the South American countries. They don't just carry guns and start shooting people because they are annoyed, or carry knives and start, maiming people because they are unhappy. And some would say it's because of mental cases. It is the way they have cared to think the distorted notion of freedom. That is the challenge. Many have these distorted notions of freedom, which freedom is considered without responsibility. If many now consider that they're responsible here or hereafter, and whatever seeds they have sown, that will return to them, then maybe there'll be more caution. But when you have the thought that, oh, I don't care, I can live the way I like, then you have that one for all and all for one is thrown overboard. Because people only care for themselves. Look at the COVID. When it became very serious, it became very clear that you needed to protect yourself, in quotes, by wearing the mask, such that you will not spread it to another. Of course, some listened. Of course, some did not listen. And those who did not listen and contacted it passed on. That is human free will. Whereas the scenario of one for all and all for one, because we have the same goal to be able to support ourselves in our strivings, such distortions will never, ever arise.
Thank you. Thanks for that explanation, Gregory. I want to move on to a totally different context now, talking about Jesus Christ. We know he came to, would say, save mankind by giving the word of God to humanity, and then in that he suffered death on the cross, or crucified there, and which we know he was innocent. And now, what I want to ask you, Gregory, and we've talked about karma already, you do an action, there is a reaction. And so what I want to ask, Gregory, when that happened, those who let's say who are responsible for that murder of Jesus, how would they sort of reap their the consequences? And would they have to be reincarnated and suffer death as well, sort of in a gruesome way, or how would there be a payback, let me say that way, Gregory, for this dastardly murder?
First, the fact is that it was a dastardly, very wicked murder. That is a fact. For human personalities to tie their neighbor on a cross and nail that person's hands and feet on the cross and have a crown of thorns is the most base, the most wicked activity that the human personality who is maturing to become a self-conscious human spirit can, in fact, one cannot even qualify it because it is so bad and it's so base. However, very clearly, the human personality evolves. The human personality, through experiences it encounters on its path, here or hereafter, evolves. evolves, that means it's able to mature, to reflect on what has happened, his or her role in that particular activity, and strives vigorously to make amends. There is another group that does not reflect at all, but just goes their way and continue in the path of wickedness. When, like we had discussed initially, an activity has been initiated, that activity gathers momentum, that activity grows. It grows in the ethereal realm, it matures, it gathers so much other things like itself, and when the density is strong enough, due to its maturity, will return to the initiator or the group of initiators, which is referred here to as stakeholders, that which they once had put in nature, in creation. For, as one now knows, the action of, or the activity of reciprocal activity, which is a law in creation, and in this reciprocal activity, that which you put in creation, the type, the same type will be returned to you. That is, the homogeneous type will be returned to you. That being the case, if you remain the same, that means you haven't changed your views internally. The intuitive environment around the personality remains the same. And therefore, that which a man has sown in the past, when it has matured, will return to it precisely the same type, but this time in a more laden form. And the human personality is then forced to taste of that which it itself has initiated. Such returns could be here. Such returns could be hereafter. If, however, along the line, that personality has matured and changed its views, depending on the speed or the strength of which it has changed its views, the ethereal environment is permeated by that which is different from the initial that initiated that reaction or that activity. In that particular case, you will find the environment, their thoughts, their intuition, are much lighter. Because of that, when the returns come, there will be no resonance. And because there is no resonance, you find they do less harm, or sometimes they do no harm at all, because the person now is no more in tune with that which he or she had initiated much earlier. So these operations are in accordance with the laws of nature, with the laws of creation, through which creation itself came into existence and is being maintained.
Thank you so much on that answer, Gregory, because we might think, oh, this is such a terrible crime. The only redemption is to receive that full. I'll use the word punishment in quotes, and so that is the. Of course, everything can be forgiven because Jesus did say, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." But in fact, well, before I can ask you on that, Gregory, but yes, each person is responsible for what they have done, and so as they, if they change towards the better, then redemption must be possible for that person. Now, Gregory, I just want to go on that what Jesus said. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is when he was on the cross. When he said that, was he referring to all of them there, or I'm trying to understand, Gregory, because people were we know that people there were people behind that plot, for Jesus to be crucified. So who is he referring to there? And Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Of course, he was referring to the stakeholders who, in words, thoughts, or deeds, contributed to him being crucified on the cross.
And okay, but so you mean, because he said they do not know what they do. It means they were like part of the crowd, like following, like sheep, you can say, rather than thinking what they're doing. So you mean those are the ones they can be forgiven, while the real plotters, if I can call them that way, obviously they would have to redeem.
What one mentioned was I used the overarching word expression stakeholders.
Right.
The stakeholders could be or are parts of the plotters who initiated it, the crowd that joined in without understanding what they're doing are parts of the stakeholders, and because they are stakeholders, then they themselves must share of the profits in accordance to how much they have been involved with the overall activity.
Okay, yes. That sounds like, that is justice. So, yes, according to how much you're involved. So that makes sense. Thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to us on Bless Radio 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. Zeno is ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1. And as I said, the topic we're discussing tonight is the immediate and remote causes of life's happenings. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I've got a couple of questions relating to, so we could say, actual people that I've come across, and they, I won't say anybody's name, but just, what they're going through, it is like good to think about. So let's say one person is actually elderly, and he's had some illnesses, and so he's still suffering from that. The stroke, let's say, is one of them, and they're also they're lonely and not connected with their family anymore through divorce, and also and they're now, well, not now, they miss that connection. So yes, they have brothers there, but it's not quite the same as your own family, and so they miss. The wife is, as I say, is no more. They've divorced, but basically the children, they're all grown up now. But however, they don't seem to want to connect with their father in this case, and this seems to affect this person quite a lot, and you could say they have become depressed. Now, so Gregory, as I told you there, that's, you could say we have the idea of the immediate cause of the loneliness, and you could say depression there. And I'm wondering, is there a deeper cause? Let's use what we said, remote cause. Is there something else going on? Because what I would say, Gregory, that, as we know, Gregory, everybody has free will, right? And you can't force anybody. Well, you can try and force, but at the end of the day, people do things out of their free will. So if somebody wants a connection and the other person doesn't want the connection, you're not supposed to force them to have that connection. So is there a way, Gregory, and the person doesn't give up that wish, you can say, to have the connection? So how can they be helped? Let me say it this way. How can they be helped, before I ask about the remote cause?
Very, very sadly, only when the human personality encounters challenges that it is unable to deal with, only then does the reality strike home. Prior to that, as long as the human personality, the physical body is very well, and there are no material cares, and is very healthy physically, the human personality gradually nudges itself into negligence because it is, to a large extent, not personally involved. Whereas it is the healthy one who, through their activities, should have realized some of the things we have discussed, one for all and all for one. Because they had not suffered from material cares, and there was no need for loneliness. They had a partner. What then happened? They felt fulfilled. Life is for the living. Life has to be experienced. One should not wait for certain catastrophic experiences to assail one before one is able to make a change and make things for the better. Very sadly, many wait for that scenario to hit them hard. Only then are they able to reflect. It doesn't mean these people are bad people, but along the line, there have been so much negligence. Negligence of the environment. For in the environment, many are able to see those who need support. Doesn't mean they need support financially, but support in the form of kind words, in the form of kind consideration. These things are very rare to come by, and only when they themselves have sunk into these scenarios will compassion suddenly awaken in them. Were they to follow such a path of compassion, then they would have built enough resistance deep within their spirit to ensure that that scenario of loneliness, that scenario of divorce, of depression, or the scenario where the physical body is unable to do things, that scenario is minimized. That is why one had been stressing this negligence. When one observes the neighborhood and one finds there are people who are suffering from one thing or the other and refuses to show any compassion because they themselves are full of health, before too long, that which would have helped them in the mobility of their spirit and mobility of the physical body, they have neglected. That mobility of the spirit is important. Mobility of the spirit in reaching out to others through the virtues one has cultivated. For the human spirit is here in the world of matter to experience, to cultivate these virtues which has been implanted into it and to come to maturity. That virtue of compassion, of vigilance, of alertness, of skill, of courage, of selflessness, of modesty. These things have to be considered. should a human personality strive along the lines of the virtues, then he or she will be sound in body and soul. For that human personality already senses what challenges are for others and also for himself. For like we had stressed, one for all and all for one, the need is there to understand that just as he himself or herself is striving to become self-conscious human spirit, so are others. For the goal is the same, self-consciousness, and it's only fair to support one another as if they are in the same team. That is what many who, to some extent, are going through these dire circumstances have to cultivate deep within themselves.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Just one thing I wasn't quite clear when you said about negligence, and I think maybe I wasn't hearing you properly, so just want to get that clear. Are you talking negligence when they did not sort of treat their, well, it doesn't have to be that you do wrong, because sometimes people get divorced not because of their own fault, because the other party, let's say, it's like they did something and then the marriage ended. And so when I just want to clarify from you, Gregory, is the negligence you're talking about what they did in their relationship with their own family in this case, or is that something else you're referring to?
That negligence which is referred to doesn't have to be immediate. That negligence could be an attitude, which attitude does not make the efforts to understand the challenges of another, and therefore, in doing that, boxed itself into a corner. That negligence can take many formats, but the key thing there is negligence. So it doesn't have to be a divorce, and which leads to loneliness. You will find these things, they just come almost all at once. But the personality must ask themselves, what must I do to ensure I do this is not what I wish to be? There must be deep within the spirit, also intellectually, the constant reflection to move forward dynamically, to be helpful to others, and not waiting to fall into a terrible scenario, even if you have all the monies in the world. Once you have fallen into a particular scenario, particularly that of health, you are unlikely to get out of it. But do you have to fall in? Is there no way of you in showing concern, even in helping others? You exercise yourself. So the returns which accrue to the human personality are so varied. These returns can only be comprehended in spirit, for the intellect is only a tool, and sometimes cannot comprehend these things as deeply as they should.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I've got another one person I would like to relate the story. This person, they have a job, but they keep losing that quite a lot regularly, and because they keep getting ill, and so it's not about being not capable to perform the actual job with their skill, lacking in skill, but it's something you could say to do with, as I say, with the health. Now, as I say, it happens quite regularly, uh, and the illness, it's like what it appears is this illness, only the symptoms are being treated rather than the underlying cause. And one person who, let's say, thought about, we reflected on that person, said that it's the immune system that needs strengthening, which it needs treating, rather than, just looking for another job, because until that is resolved, that is the, you could call, say, as we say here, there's an immediate cause of a situation, and then there's also the remote cause, and it's the remote cause which is the more fundamental issue. So, and until they deal with that, the situation won't really change. So, it's like, I don't want to add like a little kid. If you keep hitting your head against the wall and you don't learn, you'll keep, another situation will arise and you'll hit your head against that wall, another wall. So my question on this, Gregory, is how can one recognize this, the bigger picture, if I can say like that, and therefore find the right solution? How can one, because as you know, Gregory, sometimes the person who is directly involved in the situation, they can't see what is going on, but somebody outside of that situation can relate to what is going on and point it out. Oh, actually, this is what's going on here. So my question is, how can a person who is actually in that situation recognize that and find the right solution there?
Well, thanks for this particular question, because one will relate a scenario that was presented to one very recently. There is this particular personality that has been unwell and went for medical treatment and was given drugs to take. But instead of the drugs doing the job they're supposed to do, things became worse. And the person went back, and the same thing happened. Then, in the process of complaining, he said, look, things are getting worse. Met somebody just by the wayside who listened to that comment and said, you don't need to take these drugs. Take warm water. See the reaction. And this particular person went home and took warm water. A day or two later, things were much, much better. The question is, why is that so? Is it because this particular personality had taken another to support, just for the sake of supporting? What is stressed here is that, of course, there are returns in all activities. But the severity of the returns depends on how much we ourselves have changed in the consideration we show to others, even when this consideration is very challenging to us. We hold on to the consideration because we wish to be of value to others. In doing that, the ethereal environment around us changes. And for one who is alert, who is vigilant, sometimes a solution is whispered. This solution may seem incomprehensible, but therein lies the solution of what you yourself have spent so much resources on. So the key here is flexibility. How can we? It all lies with man, how he or she wishes to live. If, in accordance with the laws of creation, he or she wishes to be of benefit not only to himself or herself, but also to one's neighbors, whether the neighbors are here around 2 feet or 100 or 5,000 miles away, or are not in flesh, but having that good earnest, good volition, having that love and that readiness to serve, also having that patience and perseverance, which is steeped in absolute selflessness and dedication. As long as one, the human personality, hold these as there, then the immediate environment will become lighter, and the threats which he or she spins, like in the loom, will become lighter. And in accordance with the laws of creation, that personality will be drawn higher and will experience one miracle after another. It is not just mere saying that the human personality experiences one miracle after another. It is a fact that the immediate environment becomes lighter, such that one is able to look forward. That is what was revealed with the so-called spiritual songs when it was said, free at last, free at last. Free at last because the returns, the threads, the karma had been severed, such that the human personality is able to swing along in full happiness. That is what the human personality must strive to achieve, and not, intellectual advantages where only it will enjoy and others must suffer.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I'm just going to read a news story again, Gregory, this time. I'm just going to read this out. Just so, again, there's quite a few anniversaries today. So today, Gregory and everybody, is a 40-year anniversary of the end of the Falklands War between Britain and Argentina. Now, this story, what I'm going to read out, is of a person who was in the fighting on the UK side, and a person from Argentina fighting on the other side. So it's an amazing story, and I'll just I'll try to read it quickly because we've come to the end of our show now. So it is titled "Falklands War Veteran Simon Weston on his unlikely friendship with enemy pilot." Falklands War veteran Simon Weston has spoken of his unlikely friendship with the Argentinian fighter pilot who led the life-changing attack on him and his comrades 40 years ago today. To mark the anniversary, the former Welsh guardsman from Caerphilly recently travelled to Argentina for an emotional reunion with Carlos Cachon, the man he once fought against. Mr. Weston is most severely injured, survivor of the 74-day conflict which saw Britain and Argentina battle for the control of the Falkland Islands. On 8th of June 1982, Mr. Weston was aboard the British ship Sir Galahad when it was bombed and set alight at Fitzroy, causing deaths of 48 crew members and soldiers and wounding 97 more. The young soldier, then 20 years old, was left with burns so severe that his own mother did not recognize him. He has since gone on to become an enduring symbol of the conflict. which claimed lives of 255 British military personnel. Mr. Weston says he bears no malice towards Carlos Cachon, despite the horrors he experienced at his hands. Incredibly, the two have gone to become friends, with Mr. Weston visiting Mr. Cachon at home in Argentina and meeting his family, including his young grandchildren. Speaking on Good Morning Britain, Mr. Weston, 60, said, "It's not personal, it's war. The clue is in the title. You're going to do something unpleasant with people who are very pleasant, and you meet them in other circumstances and you'd get on, but these circumstances brought you together." He said Mr. Cachon didn't hesitate when he was first approached 30 years ago about the two men coming face to face. "For me, the meeting was more about me having to exercise my ghosts," he said. "I had to get rid of some real demons that I had." I'm just going to try and, I'll just continue. Mr. Cachon was made aware that the Welshman had been battling mental ill health since the 1982 attack. This included him experiencing recurring nightmares of a black fighter jet with a hooded, flamed-eyed demonic figure racing over him every night. This is the words of Mr. Weston. I'm just, who's from the UK side. Mr. Weston said that he would find himself rolling around on fire in the early hours of the morning, covered in sweat, and he hoped meeting his enemy would help to break the cycle. When Carlos was asked, would he meet me, he instantly went, "Absolutely. Didn't hesitate," said Mr. Weston. He said, "I had played a part in his problems. Hopefully, I can play a part in his solution." Mr. Weston added, "He got the softest brown eyes he's got the softest brown eyes, and he's just the nicest, most compassionate guy. He was just doing his job, and he did it incredibly well. Sadly for me and sadly for my friends, but at the end of the day, it's called war." I just want to get to that. I think I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to end, yes. Basically, I'm going to stop there. And I just want to say, Gregory, this was a really another, let's say, touching story of, in quotes, two people, on opposite sides. Apparently, it looks like evil acts that are going on, but there was no personal animosity. It was their job, what they were doing. And yet, and it caused one person suffered quite terribly, and yet, with nightmares, recurring nightmares, and then for him to recover from that, in this case, he felt he had to meet his enemy, and that changed everything when he met him. So, is there anything you'd like to say on that story, Gregory?
We can only wish such personalities very well, for the challenge was not theirs. The challenge was government, and yet they brought in innocent people to experience that which is not theirs. So one should understand for now that there is some illness, the illness of insanity of war. This war was not brought from another planet. This war was not initiated by nature's forces. This war, which is mentioned, is only initiated by disgruntled individuals who have all to make others happy, but have refused. And this war must be considered as the outgrowth of personal vanity and personal inadequacies. These are the things that precipitate war. Otherwise, there is absolutely no need to destroy another personality who, like you, is striving after self-ennoblement.
Thank you for that, those words, Gregory. I know we've come to the end of the show, listeners. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you found the topic of the immediate and remote causes of life's happening enlightening, and we encourage you to pick up the Grail Message, to examine it and see the wonders that are there for yourself. If you wish to do that, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing all the listeners a very beautiful week.
And the same from me. We'll be back again next Tuesday with another topic. Hope you can join us then. All the best. Good night.